Hello everyone and welcome to my first video on YouTube. Today I have a kind of random review for you. I'm reviewing Annabelle Comes Home from 2019. It is directed by Gary Dauberman. It's the 7th film in the Conjuring universe. There's a new Conjuring film coming out later this year, so I figured I'd review this one. I just watched it for the first time. So let's get into it. So to give just a brief summary of the plot, this movie is focused on the Warrens' household when they leave their daughter alone with a babysitter. Annabelle's case, which is open, Annabelle's in the house, so her case gets opened and basically unleashes a house of horrors on the daughter, the babysitter, and her friend. It's a fairly simple plot, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially in a horror film. Sometimes the plot should be simple. Alright, so now let's look at the things that I thought this movie did well. I think this film hits all the right notes you would expect from a good Conjuring movie. You find yourself effortlessly caring about the lead characters who all had solid performances. Like many of the other movies in the Conjuring franchise, this film is scary, plenty of jump scares, plenty of thrills, but it doesn't overdo them. Like you'll sometimes see in often horror movies where they just are constantly trying to scare the viewer. To me, that takes you out of the film. You just don't care about it. This film does not do that. It's a good thing. Another thing good about this movie is that it brings back Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are really the stars of the first two Conjuring films, but they're not in it too much as to oversaturate them, so you're able to enjoy them being there, but they're not in it too much to the point where you don't enjoy them anymore. Alright, so now let's look at the negative side of the movie. So while I don't think this movie did anything specifically wrong or major wrong, I don't think it did anything better than other films we've seen in the franchise. The plot is not as exciting. The movie is not as scary as when compared to something like Annabelle Comes Home or The Conjuring 2. Alright, so going back to the story, I didn't think it was a very engaging story compared to the stories or plots of Conjuring 2, Conjuring 1, Annabelle Comes Home, which are pretty much the good films in the Conjuring universe. But that's not to say this movie's plot sucked. I just find it less intriguing than some of the other ones. And as I mentioned, it's not necessarily a bad thing. But when you put the whole thing together, this movie kind of comes off as rather weak and forgettable. So for a consensus on this movie, at the end of the day, I enjoyed it. It was entertaining, as horror movies should be. You can sit back on a Friday night, sit down and enjoy the movie. And as a horror fan, this film checked off most of the boxes that I am looking for in a horror movie. Scary, fun to watch, entertaining, there's good acting. You can't ask for much more from a horror movie nowadays. But the movies are really getting people to care about horror movies, get excited about horror movies, where we have seen them not be so successful in recent years. These films, to me, are at least slightly bringing back how great horror movies can be. As for a recommendation of this movie, I would recommend this to pretty much any horror fan. It's a solid horror movie for the 2010s. And if you're not as much into horror, I feel like there's certainly a lot of entertainment value you can find from this movie. You can kind of sit back, especially if you have some friends with you, and just enjoy it. It's a good time. So overall, I would recommend this movie. So on a scale of 0 to 100, I'm going to give this movie a 75. And for entertainment value, I'm going to give it a B. Alright, and that will do it for my first video on YouTube. I hope you enjoyed. And if you enjoyed the video, consider hitting the like button, subscribing, and leaving a comment. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.